Lieutenant Audie L. Murphy had fought in 7 major campaigns of World War II.
Audie Murphy died in 1971, but the stories about what he did in combat never died with him. They sounded too extreme, too risky, like the kind of war tales that grow bigger every time they're retold. For years, many people assumed the truth had been stretched. That memory had exaggerated things, that hero worship had filled in the gaps. But then, the records surfaced, the photos, the first-hand reports, and they all pointed to the same conclusion. These stories weren't myths. They were very much real. Today, we're looking at the Audie Murphy stories people didn't believe were real, until they saw the proof. Audie Murphy's turbulent childhood. Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, in Kingston, a small rural community in Hunt County, tucked away in northeastern Texas. He came into the world as the 7th of 12 children, raised by Emmett Berry Murphy and Josie Bell Murphy, in a family that lived the hard, uncertain life of sharecroppers, with roots traced through English, Irish, Scots-Irish, Scottish, and German lines. Growing up, he wasn't the kind of kid people describe as bright or full of promise. He was a loner, known for mood swings, and he carried an explosive temper that could flare fast. His childhood played out around the towns of Farmersville, Greenville, and Celeste, where he went to elementary school, but school didn't get to keep him for long. His father drifted in and out, never really steady, until he finally deserted the family. By the time Murphy hit 5th grade, he was done with school, not because he didn't care, but because survival doesn't wait. He started picking cotton for $1 a day just to help keep his family standing. Somewhere in all that pressure, he also became highly skilled with a rifle, hunting small game so there'd be food. Then came the blow that didn't just hurt, but stuck. In 1941, his mother died from endocarditis and pneumonia, and the family didn't just lose a parent. It lost the one person who had held the center together. After that, Murphy bounced into whatever work he could find, including a radio repair shop, and later a job at a place in Greenville that wasn't just one thing. It was a general store, a garage, and a gas station all rolled into one. Things got so unstable that Hunt County authorities placed his 3 youngest siblings in Bowles Children's Home, a Christian orphanage in Quinlan. And even after the war, the pull of that early responsibility didn't let go. Murphy later bought a house in Farmersville for his eldest sister Corinne and her husband, Poland Burns. And for a while, other siblings moved in too, briefly sharing that home. But if you want the real thread that runs through all of this, it's his mother. Losing her didn't just mark a year on a timeline, it stayed in him. He later described her as having the most beautiful hair he'd ever seen, hair that reached almost to the floor. And he remembered her as someone who rarely talked, someone who always seemed to be searching for something she couldn't name. He admitted they didn't really discuss feelings, but when she died, it felt like she took something out of him with her, and he'd been searching for it ever since. Before the battlefield stories, before the medals, before anyone called him a hero, there was a boy in northeastern Texas learning early that life doesn't care how young you are, it just keeps coming. Audie Murphy's mind-blowing feats. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, Audie Murphy didn't wait for life to decide his future. He went straight for the door. He tried to enlist. The Army turned him down. The Navy turned him down. The Marine Corps turned him down too. The reasons were blunt and final. He was underweight, and he was underage. He was willing. The system wasn't buying it. That's when his sister stepped in. She provided an affidavit that moved his birth date forward by a year. A small lie with huge consequences. Once the paper existed, the gate finally opened. On June 30th, 1942, Murphy was accepted into the U.S. Army. Basic training came next, Camp Walters first, then Fort Meade for advanced infantry training, and he didn't drift through it. During training, he earned the Marksman Badge with Rifle Component Bar and the Expert Badge with Bayonet Component Bar. Those details matter. They show a pattern early. When he was given a weapon, he mastered it. When pressure showed up, he didn't fold. On February 20th, 1943, Murphy was shipped to Casablanca in French Morocco. He was assigned to Company B, 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, training under Major General Lucien Truscott. After Axis forces surrendered in French Tunisia on 13th May, the division was tasked with guarding prisoners. It wasn't a pause. The engine stayed hot. Murphy served as a platoon messenger during training at Arzew, Algeria, preparing for the Allied landings in Sicily. Promotions followed quickly. He was promoted to Private First Class on May 7th and Corporal on July 15th. Once he was in, he moved fast. On July 10th, 1943, the 3rd Infantry landed at Licata, Sicily. Murphy was a division runner. On a scouting patrol near Canicattì, he killed 2 fleeing Italian officers. When Company B reached Palermo on July 20th, he was sidelined for a week by illness. Even that wasn't rest, just a brief interruption. He rejoined his unit on a hillside position protecting a machine gun emplacement while the rest of the division fought at San Fratello en route to Messina. War split people up like that. Some pushed forward. Others held ground that still had to be held. September brought Operation Avalanche at Salerno. Then came the ambush along the Volturno River. German machine gun fire killed 1 soldier and wounded Murphy and another. The 2 survivors responded by killing 5 Germans with grenades and machine gun fire. In October, during the assault on the Volturno line near Mignano Montelungo Hill, 193, Murphy and his company repelled an attack by 7 German soldiers. 3 were killed. 4 were captured. By December 13th, he was promoted to sergeant. January 1944 brought another promotion to staff sergeant. It also brought malaria. Murphy was hospitalized in Naples on 21st January and missed the initial Anzio landing. He returned on 29th January, fought at Cisterna, and was made platoon sergeant. Then he went back to Anzio, where the 3rd Division stayed for 4 grinding months. On the 2nd of March, sheltering in an abandoned farmhouse, Murphy and his platoon killed the crew of a passing German tank. Murphy crawled out alone and destroyed the tank with rifle grenades. He received the Bronze Star with V device. He continued making scouting patrols to capture prisoners. Malaria hit again. He was hospitalized on March 13th for a second bout. On May 8th, Murphy and 60 others from Company B received the Combat Infantryman Badge. He later received a bronze oak leaf cluster for his Bronze Star. On August 15, 1944, during the invasion of southern France, Murphy earned the Distinguished Service Cross. After landing near Ramatuelle, his platoon advanced through a vineyard and came under fire. Murphy retrieved a machine gun and returned fire, killing 2 Germans and wounding another. 2 more exited a house and appeared to surrender. Murphy's closest friend responded. They shot and killed him. Murphy advanced alone on the house under direct fire. He killed 6, wounded 2, and captured 11 prisoners. Later that month, during the Montelimar offensive, Murphy's battalion helped secure the area and received the Presidential Unit Citation. On September 15th, Murphy suffered a heel wound from a mortar blast, earning his first Purple Heart. On October 2nd at Lomeg Quarry, he earned his first Silver Star after killing 4 and wounding 3 at a German machine gun position. 3 days later, he crawled forward alone with an SCR-536 radio, directing his men for an hour while under direct fire. When the hill fell, 15 Germans were dead and 35 wounded. He received a bronze oak leaf cluster for his Silver Star. In January 1945, Murphy rejoined his platoon in the Colmar Pocket, a German-held area spanning 850 square miles. On 24th January, the 3rd Division moved to Holzwihr under heavy counterattack. Murphy was wounded in both legs. 2 days later, he was made commander of Company B. That afternoon, German troops and tanks attacked. Murphy ordered his men to withdraw. A direct hit destroyed an M10 tank destroyer near his position. The crew escaped. Murphy stayed. He directed artillery fire by radio, then climbed onto the burning tank destroyer and fired its .50 caliber machine gun. For an hour, he held off advancing infantry and tanks, killing or wounding roughly 50 Germans. Wounded again, he fought until ammunition ran out, then led his men forward to repel the attack. For that stand at Holzwihr, Murphy was awarded the Medal of Honor. He was promoted to first lieutenant on February 16th and received the Legion of Merit. He was moved to regimental headquarters as a liaison officer. The honors that followed were extensive, from the United States, France, and Belgium. They read less like trophies and more like attempts to name what he endured. On June 2, 1945, near Salzburg, he received the Medal of Honor. Asked why he had taken on an entire company alone, Murphy answered simply, "They were killing my friends." He ended the war, having received every U.S. Army Combat Award for valor available. Afterward, questions arose about West Point. Murphy floated the idea, then dropped it. Academic life didn't match a body trained by instinct and war. On June 13, 1945, he reported to Fort Sam Houston and was sent home on 30 days' leave. The country didn't let him disappear. Parades followed, speeches, celebrations, platforms that could never hold what he'd lived through. He received a belated Good Conduct Medal in August. On 21st September, he was discharged as a first lieutenant with a 50% disability rating. How Audie Murphy survived the war. But the war didn't let go of him. After the fighting ended, Murphy came home with medals on his chest. But his nights told a different story. He was plagued with insomnia and bouts of depression, and even sleep didn't feel safe. He kept a loaded pistol under his pillow, not as a dramatic gesture, but as a sign of how on edge his body and mind still were when everything around him was supposed to be normal again. A post-service medical examination on the 17th of June, 1947, laid it out in plain terms. Headaches, vomiting, nightmares about the war. His medical records even noted that he took sleeping pills to try to keep the nightmares away, which says a lot on its own. He wasn't chasing comfort. He was trying to shut a door that kept flying open. And the years didn't magically smooth him out. If anything, the strain dug deeper. His post-traumatic stress levels made his natural moodiness worse, and it spilled over in episodes that friends and professional colleagues found alarming. His first wife, Dixie Wanda Hendricks, later claimed he once held her at gunpoint. She also witnessed him falling apart in a different way, guilt-ridden and tearful while watching newsreel footage of German war orphans. That detail matters because it shows what haunted him wasn't just what he did. It was what he saw, what he survived, and what he couldn't undo. At one point, he tried to find a softer outlet. After his army discharge, he briefly leaned into writing poetry, almost like he was looking for a place to put the parts of himself that didn't fit anywhere else. His poem, The Crosses Grow on Anzio, appeared in his book To Hell and Back, but it was attributed to a fictitious character, Kerrigan. Even there, even on the page, you can feel that half step back, like he wanted to say it, but couldn't fully stand in front of it. By the mid-1960s, another fight showed up, quieter but still dangerous in its own way. He recognized he had become dependent on the sedative Placidil, and instead of pretending it wasn't happening, he handled it in a way that sounds like Murphy. He locked himself alone in a hotel room for a week and broke the addiction. But what makes this part of his story hit is that he didn't keep it all private. When Korean War and Vietnam War veterans came home carrying similar invisible damage, Murphy spoke out candidly about his own struggles. Back then, people didn't call it PTSD the way we do now. During his lifetime, it was widely known as battle fatigue and shell shock, language that reached all the way back to World War I. Murphy pushed past the labels and went straight to the point. He called on the government to take the emotional cost of combat seriously, to study it properly, and to extend health care benefits to veterans who were coming home wrecked in ways nobody wanted to talk about. That advocacy didn't end with him. 5 months after his death in 1971, U.S. Congressman Olin Teague introduced legislation that led to a lasting tribute, the Audie L. Murphy Memorial, a hospital in San Antonio, dedicated in 1973, now part of the South Texas Veterans Health Care System. It's one of those details that feels fitting, because Murphy wasn't only a symbol of courage in combat, he became a voice for what happened after. Then, just when it seemed like the story had already taken every hard turn possible, it ended abruptly. On 28th of May, 1971, Murphy was killed when the private plane he was riding in crashed into the side of a mountain northwest of Roanoke, Virginia. The conditions were brutal: rain, clouds, fog, and zero visibility. The pilot and 4 other passengers died too. The aircraft was a twin-engine Aero Commander 680, flown by a pilot with a private pilot license and a reported 8,000 hours of flying time, but no instrument rating. The plane was recovered on 31st May. After Murphy's death, his widow, Pamela, moved into a small apartment and took a clerk position at the Sepulveda Veterans Administration Hospital in Los Angeles, where she stayed employed for 35 years. On June 7, 1971, Murphy was buried with military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. The attendance list alone shows how much weight his name carried: Ambassador to the UN, George H.W. Bush, Army Chief of Staff William Westmoreland, and many members of the 3rd Infantry Division. His gravesite sits in Section 46, across Memorial Drive from the amphitheater, and a special flagstone walkway was later built because so many people kept coming. It's the cemetery's 2nd most visited gravesite, after President John F. Kennedy's. And even in death, Murphy chose understatement. Medal of Honor recipients at Arlington usually have headstones decorated in gold leaf, but Murphy had requested that his stone remain plain and inconspicuous, like that of an ordinary soldier. There's something almost heartbreaking about that. After everything, he still wanted to blend in. His headstone lists the birth year 1924, based on the same disputed, supposedly falsified military materials tied to his enlistment. It's a strange full-circle detail. The war began for him with a shifted birth year, and the marker that remains carries that shadow too. Not far from where the crash happened, another marker was raised. In 1974, a large granite memorial was erected near the crash site, just off the Appalachian Trail. A year later, in 1975, a court awarded Murphy's widow Pamela and their 2 children $2.5 million in damages related to the accident. Over time, civilian honors piled up too. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And in 2013, Texas honored him with the Texas Legislative Medal of Honor, bringing his story back home in a way that feels almost inevitable. Audie Murphy's quiet battles at home. Fame, money, and a temper he couldn't outrun. Audie Murphy's personal life never really slowed down after the war. If anything, it followed the same. In 1949, he married actress Wanda Hendricks, stepping into a relationship that looked solid from the outside but struggled behind closed doors. 2 years later, in 1951, the marriage ended in divorce. There was no long pause, no drawn-out reset. Just 4 days after the divorce became final, Murphy married again, this time to Pamela Opal Lee Archer, a former airline stewardess. With Pamela, his life took on a more settled shape, at least on paper. They had 2 sons, Terry Michael and James Shannon. Fatherhood mattered to him, even if peace didn't always come easily. He wanted structure. He wanted something rooted. That search for grounding showed up in unexpected places, especially away from Hollywood and away from crowds. One of those places was the land. Murphy poured himself into breeding quarter horses, first at the Audie Murphy Ranch in what is now Menifee, California, and later at the Murphy Ranch in Pima County, Arizona. The ranch life appealed to something quieter in him. The routines, the animals, the sense that effort produced visible results. His horses even raced at the Del Mar racetrack, and he invested heavily in the venture, not casually, but with real money and real belief. But belief didn't always protect him. Gambling crept into the picture and started pulling his finances apart. By his own admission, the numbers were ugly. In 1968, Murphy stated that he had lost $260,000 in an Algerian oil deal, and at the same time, he was dealing with the Internal Revenue Service over unpaid taxes. For someone whose image suggested endless success, the reality was far more unstable. The money came and went fast, and the stress followed close behind. What stands out, though, is what he refused to do. Even while struggling financially, Murphy turned down offers to appear in commercials for alcohol and cigarettes. He was acutely aware of his influence, especially on young people, and he didn't want his face attached to habits he believed could harm them. It's a small detail, but it says a lot. He understood the weight of his image, even when his own life felt like it was slipping. Still, the pressure had a way of showing itself. Murphy was known for a quick, fierce temper, and that reputation wasn't exaggerated. Throughout his adult life, he was involved in several violent altercations. These weren't the actions of a man looking for trouble, so much as someone who never fully left the battlefield behind. The edge was always there, just beneath the surface. That edge came to a head in May 1970, when Murphy was arrested in Burbank, California. He was charged with battery and assault with intent to commit murder after a dispute with a dog trainer. The accusation was serious. He was alleged to have fired a shot at the man, a claim Murphy firmly denied. The situation spiraled quickly, pulling his name back into headlines for all the wrong reasons. In the end, he was cleared of the charges, but the incident lingered as another reminder that even decades after the war, the fallout still followed him. No one thought these Audie Murphy stories were real until they saw this. Despite being one of the most decorated war heroes in American history, Audie Murphy never allowed himself to be defined by the battlefield alone. When the war ended, he didn't disappear into a quiet life built around medals and memory. Instead, he chased whatever stirred him, acting, writing, even songwriting, as if standing still was never an option. To some people, that choice felt almost as unbelievable as his combat record. A soldier like that wasn't supposed to want Hollywood. And yet, he did. His path into film began almost by accident. In July 1945, Life magazine ran a photograph of Murphy and labeled him the most decorated soldier. Actor and producer James Cagney saw it and was immediately intrigued. Cagney brought Murphy to Hollywood, signed him, and gave him professional training in acting, voice, and dance through his production company. On paper, it looked like the start of something big. In reality, it never fully materialized. Murphy was never cast in one of their films, and by 1947, a personal disagreement quietly ended the association. Another door had opened, then shut just as fast. Murphy didn't walk away. He doubled down. He began working with acting coach Estelle Harmon and obsessively sharpened his diction, reciting dialogue from William Shakespeare and William Saroyan. He moved into Terry Hunt's athletic club in Hollywood, a place filled with fighters and performers, and lived there until 1948. It was there that he met Hollywood writer David "Speck" McClure, who became both a friend and collaborator. McClure later worked with Murphy on his memoir, To Hell and Back, and helped him land a small paid role in Texas, Brooklyn, and Heaven in 1948. Around that same time, Murphy was dating actress Wanda Hendricks. Through her agent, he picked up another bit part in Beyond Glory, directed by John Farrow. Then came Bad Boy in 1949, the film that finally shifted how the industry saw him. The movie's financial backers refused to move forward unless Murphy was given the lead. Allied artists hesitated, wary of placing an inexperienced actor at the center of the project, but they agreed. Bad Boy became Murphy's first leading role, and it proved that he could carry a film without leaning on his war record. Universal Studios took notice and signed him to a 7-year contract at $2,500 a week. His first film under the deal cast him as Billy the Kid in The Kid from Texas in 1950. That same year, he appeared in Sierra alongside Wanda Hendricks, who had by then become his wife, and Kansas Raiders, where he played Jesse James. Universal later loaned him to MGM in 1951 for The Red Badge of Courage, directed by John Huston. The collaboration mattered. Huston didn't treat Murphy as a novelty. He treated him like an actor. They worked together again years later on The Unforgiven. Throughout the early 1950s, Murphy worked steadily. He made The Duel at Silver Creek with Don Siegel, followed by Column South, Tumbleweed, and Destry, a remake of Destry Rides Again. Westerns became his lane. They fit him naturally. Quiet men, hard choices, violence that carried weight rather than spectacle. The moment that truly changed everything came in 1955 with To Hell and Back, the film adaptation of his memoir. Murphy was reluctant to play himself. Reliving the war on screen wasn't something he rushed toward, but he eventually agreed, and the result stunned both critics and audiences. The film became the biggest hit in Universal Studios history at the time. Suddenly, the stories people doubted were playing out on screen, stripped of exaggeration, grounded in Murphy's own restrained performance. To promote the film, Murphy appeared on popular television shows like What's My Line, Toast of the Town, and Colgate Comedy Hour. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but he was present, and that presence resonated. His partnership with director Jesse Hibbs proved especially productive, leading to several more films together, including Walk the Proud Land, Joe Butterfly, World in My Corner, and Ride a Crooked Trail. The collaboration worked because Hibbs understood Murphy's limits and leaned into them rather than pushing him to be something he wasn't. By the late 1950s, Murphy was taking on more complex roles. He starred in The Quiet American, worked alongside James Stewart and Dan Durya in Night Passage, and delivered one of his most praised performances in No Name on the Bullet, playing a hired killer with quiet menace. Critics responded to the restraint. the lack of bravado, the sense that something heavy sat just beneath the surface. Murphy also moved into television during this period. He appeared in the Startime episode The Man alongside Thelma Ritter, and later donated his time and image to several episodes of The Big Picture, a U.S. Army-produced series. His cooperation earned him the 1960 Outstanding Civilian Service Medal. Even outside of uniform, the military thread never fully left him. Behind the scenes, Murphy built long-term creative relationships. Writers like Claire Huffaker and the Willinghams worked closely with him on projects including Whispering Smith, Battle at Bloody Beach, Bullet for a Bad Man, Arizona Raiders, and 40 Guns to Apache Pass, his final starring Western in 1967. His last film, A Time for Dying, was written by Bud Boetticher, whom Murphy had first met years earlier in a boxing gym. What most people don't expect is that Murphy was also a poet. During work on To Hell and Back, David McClure discovered discarded verses in Murphy's apartment. One became the haunting poem, The Crosses Grow on Anzio, attributed in the book to a fictional soldier. Only 2 other poems survived. One of them, Freedom Flies in Your Heart Like an Eagle, later became part of a public speech and was eventually set to music. Music itself was another outlet. Murphy loved country music, especially Bob Wills and Chet Atkins, though he wasn't a performer. Through his friend Guy Mitchell, he met songwriter Scott Turner, and together they collaborated on several songs between 1962 and 1970. Tracks like Shutters and Boards and When the Wind Blows in Chicago found modest success, further proving that Murphy's creativity extended far beyond the battlefield. And when you step back and look at it all, the disbelief makes sense. A soldier who survived impossible combat. An actor who carved out a real career. A writer and collaborator who quietly left his mark. No one thought these Audie Murphy stories were real until they saw the proof stacked up, piece by piece, in plain sight. What are your thoughts on Audie Murphy? Do you think he was truly extraordinary? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.